ആരും ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല, സമയം കഴിഞ്ഞു. അവരോടൊന്ന് പറയൂ. Okay. So I've shared my screen now. Hope it is visible to you. Okay. Can you see the screen? Okay, Amrita. Okay. So yesterday we were discussing about how EDLC can be modeled using different uh, development techniques like waterfall model. First approach that we followed, that we studied, was a linear or waterfall model, where the EDLC phases are carried out in a linear sequence. And the second method was iterative or incremental or fountain model, where these steps, they were repeated in cycles, and each cycle contained the same phases, but they are repeated for different times based on the number of requirements to be implemented in the system. That is, during cycle one, the most important requirements will be built into the system, and a working product with minimum functionalities will be delivered to the customer. And the next cycle, again, they will go on adding new requirements, and finally the entire product, the product with all the requirements satisfied, will be generated during the last cycle. So this is also called fountain model, since it goes down from the initial phases till the last phase, and again during the second cycle it again comes back up to the next the first phase of the next cycle, and this goes up and down like this, and so it is called fountain model. So yesterday we were discussing about this fountain model, and next we have to go to the advantages and disadvantages of fountain model. So let us see what are the advantages of fountain model, or it is also called iterative model or incremental model. Iterative or incremental model, because the product is developed in increments, and each increment, after each increment, a particular functionality will be implemented into the system. So let us see what are the advantages. So the first advantage is that it provides good feedback after implementing each function, since it is taking a step-by-step approach to build functionalities into the system. After implementing a particular functionality, it is given to the product is evolved, and it starts functioning. After that, a good feedback is obtained based on the functionality that has been built. The second advantage is that changes can be easily included, because it is developed in increments, so changes can be easily incorporated after each cycle. Each cycle is implementing certain changes, so if any change is requested by the customer in between, those changes can also be accommodated. But this cannot be done in waterfall model, because all requirements, once they are fixed in the first step, only those requirements will be carried out till the end. So in between, if customer requests any change, that cannot be done in waterfall, in the linear model, whereas in this model, the changes can be incorporated. So also each cycle, after each cycle, we have a next cycle following it, and this cycle 2 will act as a maintenance phase for cycle 1, because any errors or any bugs found during cycle 1 will be fixed in cycle 2. So the next cycle acts as a maintenance phase or a support phase for the previous cycle. So anyway, the functionalities are thoroughly checked after each cycle. And third advantage is that it provides a working product with minimum features at the first cycle itself. As we said earlier, in the first cycle, the most important requirement is identified, and it is built into the system, and the system is released as a product. So the customers are able to get products quickly. They needn't wait till the last phase. So a working product with minimum features will be available after the first cycle itself. Then next is risk can be minimized because each phase the bugs are being fixed, and so risk analysis can be done in each of these cycles, and so risk is minimized. Then project management and testing, since it is done in parts, only the managers, they need to check only a small part of the functionality during each cycle. So project management and testing becomes more simpler. Rather than testing all the functionalities at the end together, here each functionality is tested and then it is built into the and the next product, next increment is initiated after testing one cycle. So testing is done in parts. So project management is also very easy. Then product development can be stopped at any stage, because if after getting the main functionality here, after satisfying the main requirement here, if the customer is satisfied with the product and if they don't want to go further, they can stop with cycle 1. Or if the developers have reached cycle 2 and again the customers, they need only this much features for the present time, then they can stop with it. So the development can stop with any of these cycles. And whereas in waterfall model, only at the end, once the phases begin, they will have to be carried out till the end. So these are the advantages, and it has more advantages than disadvantages. So let us see the drawbacks. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, Amrita. So now let us see the drawbacks. So the drawback, first one is extensive review requirement is needed at each cycle. Since there are changes involved in every cycle, review requirement, that is whether a particular change introduced into a product will affect other requirements, that review has to be carried out extensively. Whenever changes occur, reviews will have to be carried out in detail to check if other functionalities will be affected. Then impact on operations due to new releases. That's what I said now. When a particular when a particular functionality is to be reviewed, they have to check if any other operations will be affected when a new change is being made. So to check these, extensive review has to be carried out in order to identify whether other operations, if there is an impact on other operations due to new releases. So the existing in cycle 1, we have completed one functionality, but in cycle 2 we are focusing on another functionality. But when this new functionality is added into the system, the old functionality should not be affected. So reviews are to be carried out in every cycle in order to make sure that the functionalities already existing thus are not affected. So that is the only disadvantage of this model. So usually it is carried out in situations where the continued funding for each cycle is not assured. That is, only if the amount of money spent on a product is available, only if the funds are available, they will carry out cycle 1. And only if the next funding is available, the developers will carry out cycle 2, and so on. So where funding is not assured, this process can be used. So that is about fountain model. So the next fourth model is prototyping. A third model is prototyping or evolutionary model. I think you had studied all these models in software engineering. First was waterfall, linear or waterfall model. Second, we studied about incremental model. Then third model is prototyping or evolutionary model. So in this model, it produces a prototype of the product, but it is not delivered to the end user after each cycle. Here we said that after cycle 1, a product is delivered to the end user. But in this next model, prototype model, only a prototype is built, but it is not a fully functional product. And this prototype can be tested tested to see if the particular functionality is satisfied, but it is not delivered as an end product to the customer. So there is the difference. So this model produces a more refined prototype of the product at the end of each cycle. And there is no commercial. That's what I said. It is not given to the customer. It is only given for review. So there is no commercial deployment of the prototype. That is, it is not delivered to the customer. So there is no commercial deployment of the prototype after each cycle. Whereas in iterative model, there is commercial deployment. That is, it is given as a product to the customer. So now the phases are shown below. That is, you have it is a rectangle with divided into 4 quadrants, and each quadrant is performing certain functionalities. Now let us see. Start from the bottommost quadrant, left bottom quadrant. That is, see here you can see this arrow. It starts from here, and that the first quadrant, it deals with analysis and planning. The first phase of any project development is analysis. So the first quadrant, the bottom quadrant, it deals with analysis and planning, and the next quadrant, top quadrant, it deals with design. Then after design comes prototyping, and after prototyping, the prototype is given to the customer for evaluation. So these are the 4 important functionalities carried out in this phase. That is analysis and planning, and then design, analysis and planning, then comes design, then there is prototyping, and then there is customer evaluation. So these are the 4 activities carried out during in this model. So first is analysis and planning. And in analysis and planning, you can see that it goes as a loop, and the first arrow inside, it shows initial requirements and plan. That is, what are the initial requirements put forward by the customer, and what is the plan for meeting those requirements. And this, after this first phase, it goes to the next phase, the next arrow here in the second quadrant, and that shows refined design. That is primary design. The first design is often primary. See, I can see the arrow here. This arrow is marked pointing to this particular line. So that is primary design. So after initial requirements and plan comes primary design. Now that is indicated by this arrow. And so, since this is the design quadrant, it focuses on the first initial design is the primary design. Then the third phase goes to prototyping phase. And here this arrow, it focuses on building an initial prototype. And initial prototype is a dummy system product which has the minimum functionalities built into the system. It is not a deployable product. It is just for testing purpose. Then in the fourth quadrant, it is this initial prototype which is developed is given for evaluation and feedback from the customer. So always this last phase is evaluation with the customer. So after developing an initial prototype, it is given for evaluation and feedback. So one cycle is completed when it reaches this point. One particular cycle is completed. So hope you understood this initial loop. Any doubt in that loop? Hello? Any doubt? Hello? Okay, Amrita. So this is the first loop. That is starting from this first phase, analysis and planning phase. In analysis and planning phase, the first phase is refine the initial requirements and plan, setting up the initial requirements and plan. And after setting up initial requirements and plan, goes to the next phase, design phase, and carries out primary design. And then after the primary design, it goes to the next phase, prototyping phase, and it carries out and it generates the initial prototype. And after generating the initial prototype, it goes to the fourth phase, that is customer evaluation phase, and their evaluation and feedback is carried out for the initial prototype that has been built. So that is one loop. Now next the loop starts again. That is the second, here you have the second loop where the refined requirements plan. Sorry, this figure, this line starts from here. This is not needed. This is a refined requirements and plan. Refined requirements and planning. Okay, I'll just look at this change. Okay, this is for this particular arrow. Refining the requirements is for the second arrow. Don't draw this part. Okay. So after I'll upload the correct one. So after refined requirements and plan, it goes to the next quadrant, and that is refined design. So the next loop is refining the initial part. So the next loop, it is first is initial refined requirements and plan. Then in the second quadrant, it goes to refined design. And then in the third quadrant, see this arrow goes for this particular line only. And then the third phase here, it goes for building the next prototype. And when this goes on in a loop, and finally, when all requirements have been built into the product, a final product is being developed, and then it is given for evaluation to customer. And if the customer accepts the final product, then it comes out of the loop, out of the quadrant. So these are the different stages through which the embedded product is developed. So we have it goes through four main stages, and for each stage it can go as many times in the loop as possible until all the functionalities are being developed in or built into the product. So this is the prototyping or evolutionary model, where a prototype of the product is developed during each cycle, and then it is given to the customer for evaluation and feedback. Once all functionalities have been built into the product, and the customer is satisfied with the product, then it exits the loop. So this is about prototyping model. So that's written here. That is, after the initial requirements analysis, the design for the first prototype is made and the development process is started. Then on finishing, the prototype is sent to the customer for evaluation. Then the developers refine the product, and again the next prototype is built and it is given for customers' feedback, and this and repeats the prototype development process again. And after a finite number of iterations, the final product is delivered to the customer. So that is the prototyping model. Now let us look at the advantages and disadvantages. Advantages that new requirements and technology changes can be incorporated, since it is doing all functionalities designing in every phase. Whenever a change is encountered, whenever a technology change is encountered, that can also be incorporated just as in the incremental model. Then the prototype development can start with a minimum number of requirements. Just like we said in incremental model, we need just the minimum requirements to implement. And so if you have the minimum set of requirements, you can generate a prototype of the model. Then risk, during each phase, risk analysis is carried out. So risk, it is under control. Risk is also under control. So these are the advantages. Then disadvantages is that deviation from expected cost and schedule. That is, the initial cost may be for implementing a certain number of requirements, but if requirements goes on changing in between, then there will be a deviation from the expected cost, and also expected time of completion may vary. So if new requirements and if are added, or if the number of requirements increases, the cost can increase, as well as the time to complete can also increase. Then the second disadvantage is there is increased project management because of changes incorporated. Project management becomes a tedious task. Project management should also be done properly. Then there is minimal documentation, and so there can be problems when we are doing backward prototyping. Here documentation is very less. We are just in building the product and evaluating with the customer. So now to find out any errors through back propagation, it will be very difficult. Then there is increased configuration management activities. That is, since there is changes going on, configuration activities must also be done. So there is an increased need for configuration management. And when configuration management process is incorporated in a higher rate, then that means that it is difficult to manage the product. So these are the drawbacks of prototyping model. So that was the third model, and usually this model is most popular among embedded product development. So among the four that we have discussed, the most popular among the development of embedded products, the most often chosen model is prototyping model, because it is developed as increments and because prototype is generated at each stage and it can be tested with the in consultation with the customer. So this model is often used. Then now going on the last model, the spiral model. So spiral model, it is a combination of linear model and prototyping model. That is, during each iteration, all the phases of EDLC will be carried out. But when one cycle is completed, a prototype is also built. So it goes in a linear manner in each loop. But after the loop, when a single loop is completed, a prototype is also generated. And so here also risk analysis is given focus during each cycle, and risk minimization is done. And this figure shows again, it is divided into 4 quadrants and it is going as a loop, where the first phase is planning. Second, you go to objects, alternatives, and constraints that should be satisfied in the system, satisfied by the system. And the third, okay, I'll show this diagram. See, this is planning phase, and then you have objectives, alternatives, and constraints to be checked in the system. Then evaluate alternatives and risks that can happen in the system, and then design and verification. Finally, these are the 4 main activities carried out in spiral model. But during each, when the spiral loops through each model, it does the activities that are mentioned in the EDLC phases. All EDLC phases are carried out during each loop. So that is, here you can see the requirements plan is generated, then the development plan is carried out in the second loop, then integration and testing is done, and after integration and testing, during each cycle, during the integration and testing cycle, also the risk is carried out, a risk analysis is carried out, and a prototype is developed, and finally the product design is refined, and at the end, a verification and validation process is done. After integration and testing, verification and validation is done to check if the product satisfies all the requirements. So here also the number of loops can be increased. It depends on the number of functionalities to be implemented in the product. So this is the spiral model. So the 4 quadrants, the activities that are carried out in the 4 quadrants are listed here. And this spiral model, it is suitable for development of complex products where requirements are often changing frequently. So risk evaluation is done in every phase, and that is the most important advantage of spiral model. So if in a product, if risk factors are very high, then usually the developers follow the spiral model. So these are the 4 models in which we can implement EDLC phases. EDLC phases can be carried out using these 4 approaches. So do you remember the approaches? Hello? Do you remember these approaches? What are the 4 approaches that we were discussing to model EDLC? We were discussing about, okay, Amrita, waterfall model was the first approach. Then next was incremental, okay, spiral model and prototype model. Okay, Ashwini. Okay, so these are the 4 approaches. And in your question, the question will be clearly specified, clearly ask which model to use to implement EDLC. Okay, to model EDLC, how can you model EDLC using waterfall model, or how can you model EDLC using incremental model, etc. The question can vary depending on the model that is to be used. Okay, there are 4 models. Any one of them can be asked. The first 2 is very important. Okay. Anyway, all are equally important because the last two mainly focuses on embedded products only. So, now we are going to the last section of this 6th module, that is trends in embedded industry. What are the different trends or changes occurring in embedded industry? So let us see the changes, and changes happen to different areas of embedded systems. One is the changes occurring in the processor, that is processor trends. Then second is operating system trends. Operating system support for the embedded products can vary. So the next trend is based on the operating system. Third is the language used for development, developing the firmware, so language trends. And the fourth one is the standards, the open standards, frameworks, and alliances that support the embedded product development. So these are the 4 trends in embedded product development. This is an important question. What are the different trends in embedded industry? What are the trends in embedded industry? So first is processor trends. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, so I had told you how many trends are there? How many trends in embedded industry? What are the trends to be considered? First is processor trends. That is, what are the different processes, advancement in processor industry that supports operating system, that is called processor trends. Then next is operating system trends, embedded OS trends. Third is the development language trends. And fourth is the standards, frameworks, and alliances which support embedded development. So let us see what processor trends are. What are the changes in embedded processors? So the key processor architecture or the processor trends happening in embedded development include the system on chip. This is one of the advanced features, that is system on chip, or we call it as SoC. SoC is system on chip technology. The SoC technology, it places the entire system on a single chip. That is the SoC technology. The entire system. Initially, we had different chips communicating with each other. They all will be integrated into the motherboard, and these different chips, they communicate with each other to perform a particular functionality. But with the advancement of SoC technology, all these different chips, instead of using different chips, entire functionalities performed by all these small chips, they are different chips, they are combined into a single chip to perform the entire, to become an entire system, and that is called SoC technology. And this had led to the miniaturization of most of the products. So, and also it greatly saves the board space in embedded hardware, and also it leads to miniaturization. So SoCs are also cost effective. So SoC technology places system on a single chip. That is its expansion, system on chip, places system on a single chip. And thus with this technology, it is possible to integrate almost all functional system required to build the embedded product into a single chip. Now this saves board space in an embedded hardware development, and also it leads to miniaturization. That is, the size is reducing. When many chips are to be used, then the size increases. So all these functionalities are done by a single chip, so the size is reduced. So SoCs are also cost effective. Just a single IC is built instead of several ICs. So the next processor trend is multi-core processors. Multi-core processors and chip-level multi-processors. So here, multi-core processors incorporates multiple processor cores on a single chip. Instead of a single processor core, there are multiple processor cores on a single chip, and it works on the same clock frequency. That is, there are several processor cores, but all these cores, they work on a single clock frequency supplied to the chip. So it is based on the number of cores that processors are known as dual core. There are 2 cores, then tri-core if there are 3 cores, then quad core if there are 4 cores, etc. And thus it implements multi-processing into the system. So multi-core processors, it increases the speed, and because of the advancement, high-speed embedded systems can be developed. Then third processor trend is reconfigurable processors. That is, it is a microprocessor controller with reconfigurable hardware features. That is, the microprocessor can be designed to include features as and when necessary, and that can be changed statically. It can be done either statically or dynamically. Statically, as it is built, or dynamically by changing by using the technology built into the processor for modifying the features. That is, most of the controllers, they can be programmed using external devices. So you can configure the processor and then use it for your specific applications. So these are the 3 advancements in processor technology. That is system on chip, multi-core processors, and reconfigurable processors. So there can be a form question like this: what are the processor trends in embedded industry? That can be a 4 or 3 marks question. Or this can come as a single question, like explain the trends in embedded industry. So you have to write all the trends. That is, the second trend is embedded OS trends, the operating system trends. Now, these operating system, mostly the changes that happen in operating system is to implement virtualization concept into embedded industry. And this happens with the help of microkernel architecture, which we had studied earlier in fifth module, the monolithic kernel and microkernel architecture. So microkernel architecture is more suited for embedded system development than monolithic architecture. And this microkernel architecture is mostly incorporated into operating system embedded OSs such as QNX, VxWorks, WinC, etc. All these operating systems embedded, they are all embedded operating system. They implement microkernel architecture. So that is one advancement in operating system, that is using microkernel architecture. Then the third development is in languages, the language trends. C is the most commonly used, as you know, embedded C is most commonly used. And other languages that are being used for embedded development is C++, C Sharp, Java, VB, etc. They also can be used for embedded development. Then another is the open standards and frameworks. And usually open standards and frameworks, they reduce the time to market because we can just use these standards. Instead of developing standards or developing our own methods, we can use open standards and frameworks to build our system. So with the advancement of new open standards and new frameworks, it is easier to implement the embedded products. So they are the 4 trends happening in embedded industry. Is it clear? One is the processor trends, and in processor trends you have 3 technologies that are changing. One is SoC, multi-core processors and reconfigurable processors. Then second is the OS trends, where we depend on microkernel architecture. Then third is the language trends, and fourth is the open standards and frameworks. Is it clear to you? Hello? Okay. Next is the bottlenecks. Bottlenecks in embedded industry. So bottlenecks means what are the disadvantages of what are the things that hinder the progress of embedded industry. So one is memory performance. Memory performance means though we have high-speed processors, we doesn't have enough memory to keep up with the increased clock speed of the processors. So though processor technologies are supporting high-speed operations through increased clock, the current memory technology cannot catch up with the speed offered by the processors. So that is one of the bottleneck. Memory cannot catch up with the processor speed. Then second is lack of standards and conformance to standards. That is, there are no specific standards to ensure interoperability among the components in embedded development. So these standards are there in certain areas like mobile handsets and all, but it is not for all areas of embedded development. So the specific standards are not designed for all areas, but only for some areas. Then lack of skilled resources. That is the design of embedded systems. It requires highly skilled and self-motivated and talented people to meet the time criticalities of embedded product development. That is, certain products must be developed within a specified time. So only if a person is talented, or only if he is skilled in doing that particular work, then he will be able to complete it within the specified time. So lack of such highly skilled personnel also is a bottleneck for embedded system development. So these are the three bottlenecks faced by embedded industry. That is, one is memory performance. Memory cannot catch up with processor speed. Lack of standards or conformance to standards, or standards are not defined for all areas of embedded development, but except for a few areas like mobile handset market. Then lack of skilled personnel or self-motivated or talented people are not available in these areas. So this hinders the development of time critical products, that is, those products that should be developed within a particular time. So these are the three bottlenecks of embedded industry. Okay, is it clear to you? Hello? Okay. So tomorrow we'll discuss the questions, like I had given you one assignment question, priority scheduling question, isn't it? Most of you had done it wrong, so we'll discuss some questions related to that tomorrow. Okay. So, see your attendance. Number 1. Number 2. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 11. Okay, Febina, 13, okay, 14. 16. 17. 18. Number 18. Okay. 18 absent. 20 present. 22. 18 present. Okay. Then 22. Sharad. Okay. 23. 23. Sarga. 24. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32. 33. Number 33, Harida. Okay. And number 3, Amal. Okay.
Miss, number 18 present.
Present. Yesterday answer absent. Okay. Okay, thank you.